Good evening, San Antonio. My name is Rachel Benavidez. I'm the Director of Communications for VIA Metropolitan Transit, and I'll be your host tonight for the next in VIA series in our Keep SA Moving telephone town halls. I want to thank everyone for joining our live interactive town hall tonight. Our panel will be discussing updates to VIA's Keep SA Moving projects, including work that's been done on the Advanced Rapid Transit Network and some exciting news about our VIA Link services. This event and others will give us a chance to speak directly with you and answer as many of your questions as possible. For our phone participants, we'd like to invite you to watch the live stream by visiting keepsamoving.com. Click on the Get Involved tab at the bottom of the page and you'll find the streaming player. To ask your questions live, please stay on the phone. For our attendees participating on the web, you can submit your questions in the chat box below the streaming player. As I mentioned, this is an interactive forum, and we'd like to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions from participants as we possibly can live on this event. Oprime estrella cero ahora para escuchar en español. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. After that, the next time you hear your name, you'll be live on the call. You'll be able to ask your questions directly. I'm happy to be with you and be your host for this conversation tonight and to introduce our outstanding panel. Tonight we have with us Jeffrey Arndt, President and CEO of VIA Metropolitan Transit, Kammy Horne, Senior Vice President of Development, and Leroy Alloway, VIA's Chief Government and External Affairs Officer. Jeff, Kammy, and Leroy, what an outstanding panel to discuss this important conversation. We're glad to be back hosting tonight and that you could be with us. As we begin this evening's conversation about VIA's voter-approved Keep SA Moving plan, I'd like to ask Jeff to give us an overarching update on where we stand with the KSAM plan and projects. And from there, we'll start getting into the details. Jeff, can you kick us off?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. So first of all, sure. I have to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. We're all Irish for one day, and today is that day. And then I'd also like and Rachel referred to this, remind everybody that the only reason we're here today and the only reason we can talk about the Keep San Antonio Moving plan and actually implementing that plan is because of what you did in November of 2020, when you voted 68% approval for reallocating a sales tax to VIA beginning in 2026 for implementation of that plan. So it's thanks to all of you that we're actually here tonight and we can talk about it. The Keep San Antonio Moving Plan, or we say KSAM for short, all hits all the time, KSAM. In any case, there are actually three elements of KSAM, at least in my mental construct. So the first one is what we call Better Bus. The second piece is our innovative services and technology. And then the third piece is the development of the first rapid transit line in the history of San Antonio, of Bexar County, and of VIA, the Advanced Rapid Transit, or ART projects. So those are the three pieces. And we have actually moved forward in two of those areas, and we are positioned to move forward in the third area. I think Rachel will be discussing each of those shortly, correct?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And Jeff, you hit on an important point, and one that we want to bring home for our people on the phone and on the internet and joining us live on Facebook, is that this plan was absolutely approved by voters, 68%, which is a mandate. And I believe that it was from all areas of VIA's service area. We're very proud of that. And we're very thankful to the voters who came out in November 2020 and told us they wanted to say yes to improve transportation in San Antonio. We're happy to talk with them about what that means and where we are in delivering on that plan. So as I mentioned, this is an interactive forum, and we'd love to hear from our callers and the folks joining us online. We'll be taking as many questions as we can from the participants. And for those of you who don't get to ask your questions live today, we'll be following up. If you leave your name and information on whatever platform that you're using, we'll do our best to follow up. De nuevo, oprime estrella cero, ahora para escuchar en español. If you do have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. After that, the next time you hear your name, you'll be live on the call and you'll be able to ask your questions directly. If you're streaming the event on our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. I just wanted to remind everyone of that. So let's get back to our panelists. Leroy, Jeff did a great job of laying out where we are with the KSAM plan now from November 2020 to right now. Can you talk with us about how VIA is implementing that plan and how improving VIA's network of services can help move our community and all of our residents forward?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Rachel. Again, as Jeff reiterated, we're here tonight because of what voters approved in November of 2020. And so over the last almost 2 years now, we've been working on how we implement this plan. We've launched new VIA Link zones in Northwest San Antonio and in the city of Sandy Oaks. We're starting public meetings on the Advanced Rapid Transit North-South project, an exciting, dedicated lane project, the first of its kind for our community. And we'll be talking about those meetings throughout the evening, encouraging everyone to come join us on March 26th and March 29th to help shape what the future of transit looks like in our community. And then, of course, as we all recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, we're looking at how we constantly can realign and refocus our bus system to provide that better bus system that responds to the conditions we see today and the new reality that we're all facing on how we live, shop, work, commute. All of that's getting factored in. But the biggest thing we need from the community is to let your voice be heard. And when we have events like this telephone town hall, the public meetings, please let us know what you think. Let us know what we can do to make sure our system is as responsive as possible to what you see as your need. Because at the end of the day, when we can provide more access to opportunity, when we can provide more equity in how we move in our community, it benefits all of us. And that's what we're really focused on. And we have been for the last couple of years. And we'll continue to have that focus moving forward.
Absolutely, Leroy. Those are great points. And I want to direct everyone's attention who's watching online to the stream at the bottom of your screen, which gives information and details about the two meetings that Leroy mentioned on March 26th and March 29th. We're going to have our two public meetings, and we invite everyone to come out. Go to keepsamoving.com for more details about those meetings. But we do want to hear from folks tonight, and we want to continue to hear from folks about what they think about the plans. We want your input, and we always take that into consideration. So I'd really like to hear from Kammy now. Kammy, you head up our planning and development group, who are doing a lot of heavy lifting on the front end of planning for this new advanced rapid transit and for a lot of the projects that Keep SA Moving involves. I would like to remind everyone again, though, before we go to Kammy, that we do want to hear from you. Dial *3 at any time to speak with a member of the team. We're trying to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak. Excuse me. Kammy, as we move forward, can you talk about the project's engineering and design work? Leroy talked to us a little bit about the public input process, which really starts to take off this weekend. But we'd like to hear from you a little bit more about the engineering and design process of the Advanced Rapid Transit line. And why is it called Advanced Rapid Transit? Let's remind everyone what that means.
Sure. Well, I'd love to talk about Advanced Rapid Transit. We're very excited about the first line that is the furthest along the north-south corridor. But let me talk to you a little bit first about what Advanced Rapid Transit is and how it differs from what our Primo service is. So we do operate Primo Service, which is our rapid service with branded stations and shelters, and those are along the 100, the Fredericksburg Road corridor, the 102 along Military, and then the 103 on Zarzamora. And I wanted to set that foundation by talking about what Primo is, because when we talk about Advanced Rapid Transit, that is added on to it's in addition to what that service looks like. So the Primo service is a high frequency service. It's 12 to 15 minutes, like I said, with the brands. And it also has what we call transit signal priority, which allows our buses, if they're running late, it basically the buses speak to the transit signals. And so if our buses are running a little late, there's an extended green light, or there's an overall shortened cycle to allow the buses to move through more quickly. And so those specific characteristics of that particular type of service, when we talk about Advanced Rapid Transit, Advanced Rapid Transit has all that and more. And how is it more? Well, there's two major differences that I'll speak to. One is the dedicated transit lane. So Primo right now operates with vehicles in the same lanes, and the Advanced Rapid Transit will have primarily dedicated right-of-way just for the buses. And so that's great for the buses because it makes it more reliable. You don't have to worry about congestion. And so it's a much more reliable service. And then it's also great for those in vehicles because you're not really stuck behind a bus. You have your lanes and the bus has the bus lanes. So that is one great thing. And then the other is what we call off-board fare collection. So the fares are collected outside of the bus, which collecting the fares on board can cause some delays. And so we have the off-board fare collection, and then we also have all-door boarding, so it makes the boarding much more rapid. So those are some differences, and so that project is moving along. I'm sure we'll be talking about the upcoming public meetings that we have for Advanced Rapid Transit. The other thing that I'll say is you might hear about Bus Rapid Transit, and why aren't we calling this Bus Rapid Transit? Well, we're calling it Advanced Rapid Transit because we're looking at the best and most advanced type of vehicles that we can use in the future for these lines, whether sometime in the future those could be potentially automated, connected vehicles. But that is why we use the term Advanced Rapid Transit, as we want to use the most state-of-the-art vehicles that we can that make the most sense for the project.
You hit on some excellent points, Kammy, and I appreciate that explainer for those who have not been as familiar with ART or Advanced Rapid Transit. That's really it in a nutshell. Kammy really put it together great for us there. There's one thing that I would like to talk about the project in general, which is you would mention that this is going to be a first for the region, for San Antonio and for our region, the first of its type of service. There are a lot of innovations that have gone into the design and to the future implementation of this service. What other types of innovative services are in the KSAM plan? One that comes to mind right away for me is Via Link.
Yes, absolutely. So Via Link is our service that provides, it's a Uber or Lyft type of service, a shared ride. And it allows the user to go anywhere to anywhere in most of the zones for the same price as a bus fare. So right now we have the service operating in the northeast, and that's a 17 square mile zone that connects into Naco Pass, and then the northwest zone, which connects Northwest Vista and UTSA, and that is about a 14 square mile zone out there, and again, anywhere to anywhere, and connecting into our service. So we also have Sandy Oaks, which is more of an express Sandy Oaks into Brooks type of a service that we have. We're going to be expanding next into the south, in around Texas A&M and the Toyota, the Toyota plant. And so that's about 11 square miles, and that will connect into our Madla Transit Center. So very exciting and very innovative, because it does allow our users to just get around really quickly, and also quickly get into our regular bus system too, for that same fare. And it's on demand. You can use your phone to call the ride, to track the ride, to rate the ride. So all of those characteristics as well.
Fantastic. You mentioned the 3 active zones now, which is Northeast, Northwest. We have express service in Sandy Oaks. I understand that Northwest is really picking up, doing great. We've expanded the zone there. So I would invite everyone to learn a little bit more about Link and the zones that are active, plus the zones that we're planning on. We would like to take a live question, but I'm going to check with our tech folks. Josh, are we okay to take a question? Let's try to hear from Lakeisha, who has a call. She has a question about impact to neighborhoods for the plans that are moving forward. Josh, can we hear from Lakeisha? Lakeisha, are you there?
Yes. I have a question.
Fantastic. Yes, ma'am.
It sounds like you guys have, I guess, the routes planned out. I was wondering if, in the future, if you see maybe those routes either congesting neighborhoods or running through neighborhoods that already exist, that might have to be rearranged in order to make room for transit for these lines that you have planned.
So I'm going to ask Jeff. Thank you, Lakeisha, for your question. I'm going to ask Jeff to lead us off in that response, and then I'd like to hear from Leroy about what we're doing to get input from the community to answer questions like Lakeisha's, which is a great question. Jeff, can you talk with us a little bit about how those routes are being planned?
Well, so first of all, the route, there's a single route that is being planned right now, and that is the north-south ART route that is primarily on San Pedro and then going south onto Roosevelt. So we're not going into the neighborhoods. We're staying on the main arteries. When Kammy was talking about Via Link, that is operated with smaller vehicles, kind of van-type vehicles. And those, of course, will rove throughout the neighborhood, but they don't have the same kind of look. They don't have the same kind of feel. They don't have the same kind of impact on the neighborhood as having a van that's going through and picking up individuals. So there will be, and I'm going to hand it off to Leroy. You know, they always say that the most successful bosses hire people that are smarter than them. And I think all of you can tell that Leroy and Kammy fit that bill for me. So Leroy, why don't you talk a bit about your plans for public engagement so that the people that live in the neighborhoods next to San Pedro, for example, will understand what we're going to do along that corridor and understand how they may be able to very much benefit from those plans.
Absolutely. We appreciate the question. So there are two public meetings, community conversations that we're going to be hosting later this month. We'd love for y'all to come out and take part in those. The first will be March 26th from 9 to 11:30 a.m. at the Via Metro Center at 1021 San Pedro. Our second one will be on Tuesday, March 29th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Roosevelt Park Clubhouse at 331 Roosevelt Avenue. Now, if you're not able to make one of those two meetings, don't worry, you'll be able to take part virtually in the meetings by visiting our website, keepsamoving.com. Or if you'd like us to come out and give a presentation specific to your neighborhood, please feel free to either email us at keepsamoving@viainfo.net or call us at 210-362-2389, and we'd be glad to set that up as well. We want to make sure that we're giving every opportunity for your voice to be heard as we shape this project. And we're at the start of this process. And maybe we can ask Kammy to walk through a little bit more about what we can expect over the next couple of years of work as we go through our engineering and our environmental design, because what we're going to hear from the public definitely helps shape that. And so absolutely knowing concerns you might have about traffic in and around your neighborhood helps us not only on our ART project, but on the entire VIA system. And it is one integrated system that we ultimately look at. Kammy, would you like to add some more about the NEPA side? And my apologies for going into the acronyms, but hopefully we can help explain a little bit more about what that means.
Absolutely. And Leroy, you read my mind. I wanted to ask Kammy, but before you go into some of the environmental aspects of the planning, let me ask a question that a lot of people ask me, and it might just be a more natural segue here. How are routes chosen for these projects, for ART and for Link?
Sure, I'll jump in and talk about that. Well, you know, the plans that we have right now are a result of many years of planning, and specifically, I don't want to get too technical about how these are done, but specifically what is looked at when we're planning any type of a rapid transit corridor is where it could be used the most in any specific location. So a corridor that would have many what we would call like activity centers that would serve people for work, getting home, to serve like this specific line that we're talking about on the north-south on San Pedro, serving as a backbone to to basically really feed into other major routes. So the most important thing about where we plan any routes is that those routes will be useful to the most people. And so, and that's very, very important. And we also want to look at something else that's incredibly important, and that is that we are equitable, that we're serving people equitably across a whole city or region or wherever we're planning. So for specifically to San Antonio, looking at an equitable design. And one of the things that really factored into the selection of these corridors is that VIA has an extensive system, so we could look and see, where people were riding and where they need to go, and look at that. So this particular, the North-South line, serves primarily what our routes 3 and 4, very heavily used routes, are today. So it's incredibly important. And I'll also say, because we will be utilizing money from the federal government, there is an extensive process, because it's important that money infuses a system that will be very productive and that will be very beneficial to the most people. And this particular line is 12 miles. There are 27, right now we're looking at 27 station areas, and generally serving from around Blue Star, Steves Avenue, up to the airport. And then our overall system is also looking at many other corridors, an east-west line and other corridors to serve other areas in the city. I hope that answered your question.
I think
Rachel,
it really does. Go ahead.
Rachel, I was going to add two things. Number one
Yes.
is, as Kammy said, federal funding is very important for the ART projects. And the federal funding is provided based upon your ability to meet certain criteria that the federal government lays out. And so the North-South line was the line that best met the federal criteria. It was the one that was most likely to actually be funded, because lacking that funding, VIA does not have the funding to do the whole thing with local dollars. That's the first thing. The second piece of your question, I think, has to do with where do we put VIA Link versus fixed route bus? Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. First, let me just reiterate, just for the people who are listening in, what you're saying is that the reason the ART North-South line is going to be developed first is because that was the one to most likely be approved for federal funding, and it now has been approved for federal funding. And I think with a medium to high rating from the agency, from the federal agency, is that correct?
I think it's a positive statement that we have a medium-high rating, and you only need a medium to be eligible. But there are still a number of hoops that one must pass through before we will actually be approved for funding. So we're well on the way. I'm very confident that this project will be federally funded, but it would be premature to say we have the funding now. What we are, though, is in line to get the funding for the first time in the history of San Antonio.
That's correct, Jeff. Thank you so much for clearing that up for us. And you were about to tell us about the VIA Link service zones. A lot of people ask, how do you choose the service zones?
Yeah. So, one of the conundrums, if you will, of transit, and I joined public transportation sector in 1980, was that as the suburbs grew, the question was, how are you going to be able to serve the suburbs with transit that people might want to use? The suburbs are laid out differently. The core is a tight grid, higher density. When you get into the suburban setting, the streets are discontinuous. There are often, barriers to getting out to a main street. And so our belief was that the large buses probably would not work that well in a suburban setting, but that's all we had as an industry. And I want to make that really clear, as an industry. So the industry put big buses in some of these areas, and lo and behold, they were not entirely successful. Well, technology has now brought us to the place where we can put something in like VIA Link, which is much better suited to the land use, the pattern of transportation in those areas. And so if you think in very simplistic terms, as you get further from Loop 410, you're going to have a higher propensity to have the kind of land use, the kind of layout that would be better served by VIA Link than a fixed route bus. As you get closer in, you have the roadway network and you feed it with Via Link in that case.
Excellent, Jeff. Thank you so much. So I want to thank our panelists for giving us some of those clarification points. And I want to remind anyone on the line or online that you can join us by phone and dial *3 at any time to speak with a member of the team. We want to hear from you. We thank you for those of you who have called in. And we actually have 2 questions that have come in from the internet. Let's take those questions, Jeff, and then we'll go to our first poll. We have an internet question from Betsy, and Betsy asks a 3-part question. 1, how does the ART plan relate to the tunnel plan? And I think what she's referring to is what we've seen in the news lately, today certainly, about a tunnel connecting point A to point B down in San Antonio, and our friends at the RMA are looking into that possible plan. Why are both options needed, a surface transportation plan and a tunnel plan? And have we received any feedback from current transit users about ART? So let's tackle that first question. How does our ART plan, or does the ART plan, relate to the plan that we've seen in the news, which is to build the tunnel underground?
So I'll start with that one.
Jeff or Leroy, certainly, yeah.
I'll start with that one. So the tunnel that's in the news right now is not a VIA project whatsoever. So I want to make that really clear. It's a project of the RMA, and it's essentially an express line from downtown to the airport with maybe one stop in between. And so although it is going north of downtown, it starts in downtown and potentially ends near the airport. It is quite distinct from the ART line in that if you think in terms of traveling on San Pedro, the underground tunnel over by the Pearl and up to the airport is not going to serve you. The two of the 3 largest activity centers or employment centers in San Antonio are the North Star Airport area and the downtown, which are both joined by the ART and by the tunnel. But along the roadway, along the pathway there are numerous places that people want to go to. The one that pops to mind immediately is San Antonio College on San Pedro. And that's why we have a project in one corridor, the tunnel is in another. My comparison would be the same way that 281 and San Pedro both coexist and both serve different functions. That's how the tunnel and the ART would interrelate. Both San Pedro and Blanco and all the other north-south corridors continue to serve the land uses along those corridors, while 281 provides that kind of express type service. And I would say the ART on San Pedro and a tunnel, if it comes to fruition, would be somewhat similar relationship.
I understand. That's an interesting question. And part 2 of Betsy's question is, and I think that you answered it, is why both options. You told us they're distinctive. They serve 2 distinctive areas in terms of moving people. One is underground, obviously, a tunnel, and one is certainly a comprehensive surface plan that we're building.
And Rachel, the other thing is that the ART line is really designed to serve the local community. And that's why it has local stops and it's on a local street. The tunnel is really more designed to serve visitors and tourists because it's essentially going to connect you quickly from an airport to downtown, but you bypass most of what's left. So you're really talking about fairly distinct markets, the visitor and tourists, who are important to us. Tourism is, I think, our number 3 industry on the one hand, and the general population of San Antonio and Bexar County on the other hand.
Fantastic. Leroy, I'll go to you for the second part of Betsy's question, and that is, have we received feedback from current transit users about our ART plans? And I know that we've actually been talking a lot with current users about how they feel about the system, telling us what we're doing well, where we need to improve. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe some recent survey results that we have?
Sure. And just to your point, Rachel, so we are going out and talking with the community and our current ridership about not only our long-range plan, like Advanced Rapid Transit, but also what their thoughts are on the VIA that they have today. And what we continue to hear is that there's a high level of satisfaction with the service we provide on the street today. But our riders are also telling us the 3 most important things to them are the frequency of service, the hours of operation, and the total travel time they spend getting from point A to point B. And so when we're looking at Via Link, when we're looking at the ART system, when we're looking at the better bus network, we're keeping those thoughts in mind as well. That's what we really strive to do, is make sure we've got a frequent, reliable system that gives you shorter waits, faster connections, and helps you move further and faster throughout your entire day. As we were reminded just a couple of days ago, actually listening to an interview from our U.S. Secretary of Transportation, we really are changing how we measure distance. It's no longer really measured in how many miles we travel, but how many minutes it takes us to make that journey. And so with ART, with the other improvements that Kammy and her team are actively working on, we're trying to make sure that we're making every minute count in your trip.
Those are great points, Leroy, and thank you so much for sharing that. So at this time, we want to go ahead and go to our first poll question. And I'd like to tell our callers on the phone that you can vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. And if you're online, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. Our first poll question is, which of these Keep SA Moving initiatives are you most likely to use? Press 1 for advanced rapid transit. Press 2 for more frequent bus service. Press 3 for Via Link. And press 4 for technology updates. And I'll repeat that again. The question is, which of these Keep SA Moving initiatives are you most likely to use? Press 1 for advanced rapid transit. Press 2 for more frequent bus service. Press 3 for Via Link. And press 4 for technology updates. And while we get those survey results back, I want to talk about the third pillar of our Keep SA Moving plan. We discussed advanced rapid transit. We've discussed Via Link. I'd like to talk a little bit about what we call our core service and plans to create a better bus network. This is an important element in the menu of Via's services. It's our traditional fixed route service. And Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about what the Better Bus plan is?
Yes, certainly. So, and Leroy actually hit on it. If you ask our current customers, what is it that they want out of the system, what makes the system attractive, the number one thing is frequency. And he gave 3. I always say frequency are the top 3, and we go from there. And in fact, if you looked at the numbers, you'd see frequency really dominated the responses in the surveys. So we began working on building a higher frequency network, over the last decade. If you look at Via about 10 years ago, there was not a single high frequency route, being something 10 to 12 minutes. And over the course of the last decade, up until 2020, we were able to put in 3 Primo routes, which operate at 10 to 12 minute frequency. And then with the city's contribution of $10 million a year, beginning, I think, in 2018, we were able to increase frequency on 18 routes, bringing some of those into that area. And so we were really working at increasing frequency. And the good news is we say, and the customers say they want frequency. And not only is that talk, but it was action, because when we put increased frequency on these routes, we saw in some cases double-digit 20 to 25 to 30% increases in ridership almost immediately, because the frequency makes it so much more attractive. The frequency also relates to travel time, because about half of our customers may have a transfer as part of their service. And the disadvantage of a transfer is magnified the longer it is between buses. If you just miss a bus that runs once an hour, you just added an hour to your commute. If you just missed a bus that runs every 5 to 10 minutes, you've only added 5 to 10 minutes to your commute. So that third factor that Leroy talked about, travel time, is highly impacted by frequency. And then the last piece of the Better Bus has to do with the hours of operation. And the hours of operation deal with how late in the day do we run, and then how about on Saturday, how about on Sunday, what runs, what doesn't run. Again, how late do they run? We've heard over and over, especially that weekend frequency really matters to our customers, and they would like to see an improvement in our weekend frequency, or I should say hours of operation. But even with our basic bus system, there's a great story of a great in its own way. It's an example. It's not a great story from the overall perspective of a man that works in a restaurant in Southtown, gets off sometime after 11 p.m., but on South Flores, which, is a major artery in San Antonio. On South Flores,
yeah.
we are not running bus service at 11 p.m. So he has to walk from Southtown into downtown. He catches a bus in downtown, and it will take him out to North Star Mall. He gets there about midnight. Well, the bus that would take him to and from his home stopped running already as well. And so this gentleman would walk 3 miles home from that bus stop because we weren't running later at night. Now, a lot of people wouldn't take that job under those circumstances, which is why access to opportunity is so important, that we offer the kinds of hours, the kind of frequency, and the kind of speed that people need. So the Better Bus System is all designed around that. It's designed around taking resources, for example, where we are running buses and we're replacing it with via link service. We take those resources, those buses, those operators, those dollars that paid for that service, and we find places within the current existing service where we can amplify frequency, where we can run later in the day, all of those things to create a better core bus system.
Thank you, Jeff. And this is a good time to remind the community that VIA is hiring for bus and van operators. I think that the system that you described is needed. I think it's definitely been a consistent priority from the community every time that we ask about what needs and what priorities they have for transit and their transportation system. And I want to encourage everyone who's interested in a career at VIA, certainly to become a driver, bus or van operator, or a mechanic. It takes a whole team to get a bus out on the road. And so go to viainfo.net/jobs to get a full list of employment opportunities. Or you can go to viainfo.net/employment to learn about specific bus operator and mechanic opportunities. Let me just go ahead and tell everyone that a career at VIA is great. Competitive salary, great benefits. I'll say that the operator's starting salary right now is at $20.25, and we have up to a $2,500 signing bonus for qualified applicants. So let me just take a moment to encourage everyone who's thinking about making a change or starting a career here in San Antonio. VIA is a great place to work. We have our poll result questions. And so I'll tell you, the question was, which of these Keep SA Moving initiatives are you most likely to use? And coming in at the top is more frequent bus service, Jeff, to the point that you just made about strengthening our core service. 34% of people who responded to the survey just now said that more frequent bus service is what they are most likely to use. That's followed closely by advanced rapid transit, which we're learning a lot about tonight, at 31% of respondents saying advanced rapid transit is the service they're most likely to use from the Keep SA Moving initiatives. Third place tonight is Via Link, and that's 28% of our callers, Jeff, almost a third of our survey respondents, saying that they would like to use Via Link. So it's good that we talked today about the Via Link service that's in effect and the plans to expand that. And then technology updates got 7% of the votes for survey respondents. So we want to thank everyone and remind you that if you do have a live question, to please press *3 or enter your question under the streaming player, and we'll be happy to answer that. We'd like to hear from you. Let's talk a little bit. Yes, sir.
Rachel, I just wanted to remark on the survey, which I think pretty well indicates why the KSAM plan is designed the way it is. When you have the variance of 34%, 31%, 28%, all very close, it shows that our market has different needs, and we're trying to meet those different needs in different ways. And I think that really only reinforces the 3 legs of the KSAM plan.
Absolutely. And Jeff, I want to talk a little bit about the past couple of years. Everybody in San Antonio knows that we've had an impact of COVID and here in San Antonio, like we have had in the world. Certainly it's affected those who rely on public transportation. And we have a really great sampling of our leadership here at VIA and the decisions that have been made in order to keep moving San Antonio safely. So Kammy, maybe you and I can talk a little bit about what we've done in the past year as an agency, what we've done in the past year as a community service provider to keep people safe while we keep people moving.
Sure. Well, I can say one of the things that we've done is we have, and during the peak of COVID, we had a social distance policy on all of our vehicles. So 16 passengers per 40-foot bus. So we adjusted the service and we made sure to have additional buses to cover that social distancing policy and keep people safe and spaced. Masks are also required, and they're still required. And then, really just to keep people safe, and I'm sure others can comment on this as well. We've had an enhanced cleaning of our entire system and of our buses, and so we've definitely worked to keep people safe, and we've also really focused on keeping people moving and making sure that in all of the decisions that have been made on the service, we were monitoring where people needed to go and made sure that we had as frequent service as possible in those areas, and really just continued to focus on that and the needs of the essential workers that we were serving. I'll also say, and I think we've talked about this before, but we really saw how much VIA was needed, especially during the earlier parts of the pandemic, when we were all completely shut down, and still our ridership only dropped about 50%. And I say only because there are other systems across the U.S. that dropped as much as 90%. That's 50% of people that still relied on VIA to take them where they needed to go. So that's what I'll say about that. So
No, yeah, that's an excellent summary of a lot of the work that's been done in the past 2 years by VIA, by our operators, and all of our frontline workers, maintenance, dispatch, our safety teams, certainly our customer information teams, to make sure that everyone can keep moving safely. So, Kammy, thank you for that summary. I do want to tell everyone that most recently, the mask mandate for public transportation vehicles and internal facilities has been extended to April 18th. So for VIA riders who were looking at that March 18th deadline, the federal government ordered that extended to April 18th. And we'll keep you posted online and on our social media when and if that changes. So with just about 20 minutes left on the call, I want to tell everyone that we have about 2,100 San Antonio folks who have joined us tonight, and thank everyone for calling. And we have Frank on the west side with a question about service in his area. Frank, are you there?
No.
Wonderful. Thank you for holding, Frank. What's your question? Oh, oops. Sounds like we lost Frank. I'm so sorry. Why don't we go to our next poll question? Let's hear a little bit more from the folks on the phone and joining us on the internet. So here's your next question. Once it begins operating, would you use advanced rapid transit if the nearest stop was within a mile of your home or workplace? And that's a great question. Once it begins operating, would you use advanced rapid transit if the nearest stop was within a mile of your home or workplace? Press 1 for yes, and if I was on the phone, I would definitely press 1. Press 2 for no, and press 3 for maybe. Again, that's 1 for yes, you would use ART if the nearest stop was within a half mile of your home or workplace. Press 2 for no, and press 3 for maybe. And we're looking forward to getting those results back. We do have another question from the internet. We want to thank Mario for this question. Can you discuss the flexibility of an advanced rapid transit system? Will it be able to adjust to fit the needs of increased ridership in other areas that may not be on the route? That's a really interesting question. Who'd like to take that one first?
Well, I can jump in and say that one of the fantastic things about any type of a bus rapid transit system is that it is not a fixed rail corridor. So if there are areas that need to be adjusted in the future, you're not pulling rail up to try to redirect the route. So in general, it is more flexible to change routes, but we are also looking at expanding that service, looking at the first line really as a backbone, and then expanding from there. But in general, if compared to a fixed rail type of a service, it is more flexible as land use or populations changes in the future along that route or another nearby areas.
And let me add to that one of the
Yes, sir.
So because we often get the question about why ART, why not light rail transit, right? And a lot of what Kammy said goes to the heart of that matter. Bus rapid transit or advanced rapid transit, as we are having, has the flexibility also that vehicle can operate outside of the physical improved areas. So we've talked about essentially the airport through downtown. But that bus, when it gets to the end of the ART line, can enter into normal traffic flow and continue on. And in fact, we anticipate that we will be serving the Brooks area and the Stone Oak area as extensions, not in a BRT configuration, but if you had a light rail, you would be forced to get off and transfer to another vehicle. So there's a lot of flexibility there. The other thing is that BRT and ART generally cost about only half of what a light rail line would cost. So that means for the dollars we have, we can have twice the volume of, or the lane miles of ART than if we had light rail projects. So it allows us to serve a greater portion of the community. And as Kammy said, our next line after the north-south line is an east-west line, and we look forward to being able to advance that in the coming years.
That's exciting, Jeff. And I have two pieces of great news for us here. And that is that the poll responses for our question, once it begins operating, would you use ART if the nearest stop was within a mile of your home or workplace? The folks who responded to the survey, 83% said yes. And that's a great, great response. 17% said maybe, and nobody said no. So we want to thank you all for letting us know that you would definitely use ART if it was within a mile of your home or workplace. And the second piece of great news, Jeff, is that we have Frank back on the line. And Frank, we apologize for the technical difficulties with our connection. We're so glad that you're back. And let's go ahead and bring Frank on to ask his question.
Crap. Oh my God. It just gets too technical.
It does. Well, anymore.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So eventually I went through and I asked what
Yes,
was my
sir.
comment. What if I typed it up? They're supposed to either call me or and they're using
So,
a different email.
Frank, we can hear you. What's your question? We'd love to hear your question.
Well, hello, Via. I'm calling from the
Hello,
far
sir.
west side of San Antonio. My
That
question
woke us
is,
up.
when is Via Transit going to be available on the far west side, passing Tele Road and John Harlan High School?
Is that Harlandale High School? John Harlan High School?
Yes, ma'am. Off of Tele Road in Culebra.
I see. Okay. So Kammy, Jeff, or Leroy, any insight on when or what service we have out there now or what we might be seeing? Tele Road and Culebra, I think, was the area.
So
I'm sorry, I don't know if y'all can hear me. Jeff, okay,
No.
great.
I'll kick us
I think
off.
Leroy is about to answer.
Yes, sir.
Please, Kammy, I'd ask for your help to add in on this one. Over the next few months, years, what we were looking at on the west side is rigging an express route from the Alamo Ranch area into downtown. That's funded through some of our federal funds that we received from our metropolitan planning organization. And as Jeff mentioned earlier, when we look at areas where Via Link service may be a good fit, the areas outside of 1604 that are more suburban in design, that don't necessarily have that street grid network that we see inside 410, those areas, I know we've had some initial planning that those may be prime Via Link candidate areas as well. The ultimate challenge when we look at how quickly our community grows is making sure we've got the infrastructure in place to keep up with that growth. And we're definitely getting better at it as a community, but it's still a challenge. And so definitely we love hearing that there's a need for service in those areas, because that helps with our service planning team when they're looking at their long-range plans, knowing that there's growth coming, that there's a demand and a need for transit to be very viable and visible in an area, helps us prioritize those areas. But other than those kind of low-hanging fruit ones, Kammy, what other plans do we have in that area, recognizing how much the west side is growing?
Well, I think you really covered that, Leroy. And I would say that specific to the area that Frank was mentioning, we'd be happy to follow up just very specifically on the areas that you covered. And Rachel, I'm sure we could follow up after tonight just to make sure that
Absolutely.
we're answering very specifically. Yeah.
That's a great suggestion, Kammy. We'll definitely make arrangements to reach back out to Frank. We thank Frank for his question, and we would encourage anyone else who has a question would like to come on live to press *3 if you're a caller on and would like to talk to our panelists, or if you're online, please enter your question just below the streaming player. So with just about 10 minutes left, why don't we get to our third and final poll question? These results have been really insightful and great. If VIA offered VIA Link service in your neighborhood, how would you use it? So we're asking our callers and those folks joining us online, if VIA offered VIA Link service in your neighborhood, how would you use it? Press 1 for quick trips within the zone. Press 2 for getting to work or school. Press 3 for connecting to a bus route that travels outside the zone. And press 4 if you're unsure whether you'd use it at all. So I'll repeat those again. If VIA offered VIA Link service in your neighborhood, how would you use it? Press 1 for quick trips within the zone. Press 2 for getting to work or school. Press 3 for connecting to a bus route that travels outside the zone. And press 4 if you're unsure how you would use it. We'll wait for those results, and I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say. And I'll just come back to our panelists. Leroy, could you tell us again when those public meetings are taking place? We really do want everyone to try to come out and talk to a staff member, learn more about ART. There are a lot of interactive elements. I understand that there's a virtual reality element. I understand that there will be stations for kids to do activities to learn more about transportation, transit, and ART. Why don't you tell us again what those dates are? And for those of you watching online, the information is in English and Spanish right at the bottom of your screen. But Leroy, why don't you give us another recap on that?
Sure. So we've got 2 community conversations that we're hosting at the end of this month. The first is Saturday, March 26, 2022, from 9 to 11:30 a.m. at the Via Metro Center at 1021 San Pedro. If you can't make that Saturday, then we're going to do a second meeting. It'll be the same materials that we're going to cover on Saturday. We'll cover it on Tuesday, March 29th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Roosevelt Park Clubhouse at 331 Roosevelt Avenue. And if you're not able to make either of those meetings, all the materials we show, everything we talk about, you'll also be able to take part in online at keepsamoving.com. Again, keepsamoving.com. If you have any questions or would like more information, please feel free to email us at keepsamoving@viainfo.net or call us at 210-362-2389. We welcome your questions, we welcome your feedback, and we definitely would love to see you at one of those 2 meetings at the end of this month. And these are the first in a series of meetings we'll be doing throughout this year as we continue the development and advancement of the first advanced rapid transit line for San Antonio.
Excellent, Leroy. Thank you so much. And Jeff, Kammy, and Leroy, we have the results from the third survey question. Kammy, did you have something to add?
I just really wanted to encourage everyone that is interested to please come out and join us. One thing that's very, very special about planning transit and public transportation projects is that we do work with the community to make these projects, to make the process interactive and to make it as beneficial to the community. So I just wanted to say, please do come and join us. We want to hear from you. We want to work with all of the communities to make this the best process and the best project ever. So thank you.
Kammy, thanks so much for that heartfelt invitation. We do hope everyone makes time to come out if they can, or to visit us online to learn more about what we're going to be discussing at those live meetings. And like Leroy said, these are just the first 2 of a series of meetings that will be happening all year. So we'll be making that plea to the community again and again, come out and visit us. So the results of our last survey question, if VIA offered VIA Link service in your neighborhood, how would you use it? Press 1 for quick trips within the zone, and 50% of survey respondents pressed 1 that they would use VIA Link for quick trips within the zone. 21% said they would use it to connect to a bus route that travels outside the zone. 17% said they would use it to get to work or school, and 12% are yet unsure how they would use it. So that's really great feedback. We thank everyone again for participating in our 3 poll questions. We do have a question from an online participant, Jocelyn. And Jocelyn asks, how will ART impact current service routes? Will these new services mean an increase in cost for VIA services? And that's a really great question. Jeff, would you like to talk with us about that?
Well, I'll start with the fair part, with the cost of the service. So we have gone, I can't count high enough, we've gone probably 5 or 6 years without a fare increase. We have one of the lowest fares in the country, and in fact, in research that the Express News did the last time we did a fare increase, they found that there was only one city in America that had a lower monthly pass rate than we do, and that's Albuquerque, New Mexico. And just by the way, I checked, and yes, Albuquerque still has a little bit less expensive monthly pass than we do. So we have a very reasonable fare.
And that's important right now while everyone watches those gas prices rise, right, Jeff?
Yes, extremely important. And we also have such a series of discounts that we offer based upon being a senior, disabilities. We have UPass, what we call UPass, where the universities essentially subscribe with VIA, and all of their students ride free for the year. Which is one of the reasons I think.
That's over 100,000 people in San Antonio of all the students and faculty for the participating universities. Right. And those are really great points to make. I'm just going to remind our panelists that we have about 5 minutes left in the call. So Jeff, these are great responses. Thank you for letting us know that we do have some of the lowest fares in Texas. Certainly we're the most affordable trip in town. I want to tell everyone that we had over 2,100 callers tonight, and I hope that everyone's still with us to hear the second part of Jeff's response there.
So with respect to what happens with the rest of the service, it's a network, and we are not going to take service away from an area where the service is successful in order to put it onto San Pedro, for example. And so what I would see is as San Pedro prospers, or as the ART corridor prospers, those services that connect to the ART are likely to prosper as well. And that's what we call the better bus system. And so our plan, as we noted before, has both of those elements. We are not going to pull from the bus system in order to build ART. We are going to succeed jointly in both of those areas.
Excellent. We've covered so much great ground tonight. We're coming to the end of our live event this evening, and we want to thank everyone, our panelists and everyone online and on the telephone, for taking your time to join us for this important conversation. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly and answer your questions. If we weren't able to get to your question this evening, you can leave a voicemail after the event is over by simply staying on the call, and you'll be transferred into our private voicemail system. You can also send us an email at keepsamoving@viainfo.net or call our office at 210-517-4715. That's 210-517-4715 to keep the conversation going. We will host more of these in the future to keep you informed on what we're working on and other important updates from VIA. We want to thank you again, everyone, for having a good evening, and remind you that our first community conversation public meeting happens this Saturday. Information is on our website and at the bottom of your screen. With just a minute left, are there any closing thoughts from the panelists?
Just one quick clarification, Rachel. Our first public meeting, while we would love to have it this Saturday, is next Saturday, March 26th.
I just can't wait. I got too excited, but it is next Saturday, March 26th. Leroy, that's a great way to use our last minute there. Make sure everybody knows when that meeting's happening. Jeff and Kammy.
Yeah, y'all come on out.
Come on out.
Join us, plan with us, work with us to keep San Antonio moving.
Absolutely. And that's such a great note to end on. Everyone have a great evening. Remember to visit keepsamoving.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter for updates. And thanks to everyone again from your friends at VIA.